Welcome to today's demonstration. In this demonstration, we will use Spinnaker to build an application container using Google Kanico. The platform used in this demonstration is version 2.24.1 of Spinnaker, which itself has been deployed into an EKS cluster running on AWS. To kick off, we'll take a look at our Lens dashboard on the right-hand side. We can see that there are no user namespaces or user applications. We've selected all namespaces up here, and all we see are system containers and system namespaces. Back over on the left-hand side, we can see our Spinnaker dashboard, and I want to pay particular attention to these three jobs. We'll start by diving in and taking a look at job number one, build and deploy my container. We can see here that we have an automated trigger configured. This automated trigger is a webhook from a GitHub repository called Hello Kubernetes. I've taken this URL and added it as a webhook into the GitHub repository, such that changes to that GitHub repository will trigger this pipeline. Once the pipeline has been triggered, the next stage in our pipeline is to evaluate variables. We have two variables only. These are manually added. Third stage is to deploy a configuration map. So we've just seen our content URL and our source branch variables. We're appending config map YAML to the end of that content URL in order to retrieve the config map. And for our branch, we're specifying our source branch. The fourth stage is to trigger another pipeline. That's called 1A, build my container. Let's take a look at 1A, build my container. So 1A, build my container starts with zero configuration, no automated trigger, as you can see here, but it does have a fairly complex second stage. When evaluating variables, we're looking at outputs from our parent execution. We'll have a quick look at the Spinnaker expression language used to harvest our app name, our image name, our source branch, etc. Those variables are now used in our Kanico builder Kubernetes job. Our Kubernetes job will deploy a container. That container will use Kanico, specifically from the Google Cloud repository, and will feed that container with the prerequisite information it needs, such as information about the Docker file it's going to generate, information about the DockerHub destination, and information about the Git repository that it needs to clone before it can create the container. We'll clean up our Kubernetes job, and the final stage is to execute another pipeline, 1B, deploy my container. Let's take a look at 1B, deploy my container. 1B, deploy my container starts with zero configuration that's of any consequence, with no automated triggers. Again, we're evaluating variables that have been passed to us by our parent job. And this is where it gets a little bit more interesting. We're creating a deployment in our dev environment. We're taking our content URL, we're adding the file name and our branch. We're deploying our gateway. We're deploying our Istio destination rule, and we're finally deploying our Istio virtual service. Once 1B, deploy my container, completes, the final job on 1A will complete. And finally, our Kanico container build step will complete. Let's see this in action. Taking a look inside of Visual Studio, we can see our Hello Kubernetes code repository. What I'm going to do is I am going to make a change to a file. Let's just throw some extra exclamation marks in. I will save that change, stage, and commit. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to push this change up into our Git repository, and I want you to pay attention to our jobs up here while I do that. Okay, our push appears to have completed, and our webhook has triggered our first job. We've evaluated the variables, we've deployed the config map, and we've executed the Kanico container build. This build my container job has been triggered. We've evaluated variables. And now what we're doing is we're creating our Kanico job inside of Kubernetes. Over here in our Lens dashboard, we should be able to see the Kanico builder job. We should be able to see very quickly our Hello Kubernetes pods spinning up. Let's go back to the Spinnaker dashboard and see what happened. I'll deploy my container job, executed our Kanico builder job. It cleaned up the Kanico builder job, and it ran a subordinate job, deploy my container. The deploy my container job evaluated variables, deployed to dev, as we saw over here in Lens. It deployed our gateway. It's now deploying our destination rule. And finally, it's deploying our virtual service. While that completes, let's take a look at the destination rule. So here's the destination rule. We can drill in and have a look at the YAML that was applied. We can look specifically at whether or not our deployment is available. We can see that it's red, which means that it isn't yet available. So let's wait and see. Once our probes wake up, this dashboard will turn to green and show us that we have 2 healthy pods within our deployment. Now, taking a look at our application URL, we can see previously that we didn't have a healthy response, but if we refresh, we should see our website stood up and responding. That concludes this demonstration. If you'd like any further details, feel free to post your questions in the comments below. This has been Mark James for Airwalk Reply. Thank you for watching.